Hello, I'm Odin, and this video is an update. What I'm gonna do is do a few improvements to the inflatable costumes I made from Among Us. When I made full inflatable suits inspired by the spacemen in Among Us, there were a few things that I wanted to change and something new I wanted to try. In my previous video, I made 3 different suits. Well, 4 if you want to count purple, but purple was a disaster. The red suit never inflated. I'm not sure why, but well, I have an idea now, but at the time I didn't understand why, and I think it's because this particular fabric, I mean, they're all the same, they're all RipStop, but this particular bolt wasn't windproof enough. I haven't done anything seriously different to this suit that I didn't do to the other 2, because I had some pretty major holes in the orange one when we were testing that was letting a lot of air out because things were mistaped. I think the fact that I can actually blow air through the fabric is enough that overall it leaks too much to build up the pressure to actually inflate. So what I'm going to try and do is see if improper use of Scotchgard will actually seal it enough that it'll inflate. It does say that you have to apply it correctly to let the fabrics be breathable, so I'm going to try to do it incorrectly. To prepare for the Scotchgard coating, I removed the fan from the backpack and turned the suit inside out. I want to spray the inside only. That felt like the right way to do it. I took the suit outside, hung it up, and used the entire can on the red suit. So one of the first improvements that I wanted to do, I actually talked about in the last video. What I want to do is fix the feet. So right now the feet are just rounds of foam duct taped on, and it works. But having worn the suits, what happens is I pick up my leg and the suit doesn't go with it. It's kind of weird to walk in. And then also because this is a flat bottom, the distance between here and the top of the head is fixed. And no matter what I do, I can't really escape having my head be in the top of the circle because it's about 6 feet between the two. And that's okay, but it would be nice to have a little more head space up there so the top of the head isn't directly on my head, unless you make a big funny hat. So what I want to do is remove the foam and see if I can't sew an inner leg. I peel all the duct tape back off the fabric and the foam, which is all I need to do to remove the foot. So I have an open pant leg. The circle was made to be 12 inches in diameter. That way my foot would fit. What I want to do instead, I made a pattern for a cone. So if I put a little bit of elastic on the inside and then sew the outside to the inside of the pant leg, maybe I can just stick my foot through it, walk on my normal shoes, which will have better traction, and it'll still inflate. And that's what I want to try. I cut up my pattern, but not right on the line. I had a 1/2 inch seam allowance all the way around. I'm going to need to sew this to the suit. Then I folded the pattern in half. The computer made a full arc pattern, but I can fold the fabric and still get the same shape. I'll have less cutting. I have 2 layers of fabric here folded in half. I matched the fold of the pattern to the fold of the fabric. 1, 2, 3, 4 layers of fabric with 2 folds, so I'll get 2 pieces. 1 cut, 2 parts. Okay, I want to line this edge with elastic, and then it has 1/2 inch seam allowance, so I can just sew it together, and then sew it inside the pant leg. I measure the arc of the fabric. It's about 19 inches, and my leg is just under 14 inches. I could have made the measurement a little smaller, but I cut 2 strips of 1/2 inch elastic at 14 inches, and start pinning it to the fabric. I pin both the ends first, then find the middle of each. Then I pin the middles together, and then I find the middle again and pin them together. And I do this one more time, pinning all of the new middles. This way I can have the longer orange fabric evenly distributed along the shorter length of the elastic. And then start sewing the edge. Now remember, there's a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So I can get it started and then stretch the elastic to match the fabric as I sew. Having many pins makes it easier for me to control that stretch. All you have to do is just remove them as you go. Once the elastic is on, fold the piece in half and stitch up the straight edge. I made a skirt for my arm. Okay, no, I didn't. I've turned the suit inside out, and I make a set of marks on the inside of each suit leg, 6 inches up from the hem. I pin the hem of my arm skirt to the inside of the pant leg. Notice the elastic of the arm skirt is on the same side of the pins as the waistline of the suit. Then I sewed the two of them together, all the way around the leg. The trick here is to not let the suit leg wrinkle in this seam. If you do, the leg will get a pinch there. My orange suit has those pinches. So what I've got, this is still inside out, this is the actual pant leg that'll be seen from the outside. And then I have a secondary piece on the inside that has elastic that's supposed to go around my leg. Let's get the leg from being inside out to being the right way out. Now I have a pant leg that's open on the bottom. It doesn't have that piece of foam taped in anymore. Because I wanted to walk on my shoes, not on foam. Plus, this will allow for a little more movement, right? I can actually pull the costume up further. If my feet stick out a little bit, it's a costume, fine. But inside, I've got this elastic gusset that my foot should be able to fit through. So let's put this thing on. It's down on the floor. It's hard for the cameras to see it. It doesn't look it, but it's now easier to put on. My feet will go through the legs and they aren't stopped by the foam feet anymore. But the nice thing is, what you can't see, is that I'm walking on my feet on the floor. Oh, that's so much nicer to walk around on. I mean, I'm still barefoot back here, but that's so much nicer to walk on. I'm pretty happy about that. The big thing with this, the sad thing with this, not all RipStop nylon is created equal. I really wish it was. I wish it was as obvious as just going to the store and going, oh, I want that color and it's all going to perform the same. The orange is mostly windproof. My blue is fully windproof. My red is not windproof at all. So, working on that. Here's a good shot where you can see the shoulder straps I added inside. They just make an X that goes behind my neck and Velcro together. All right, I'll admit, it hasn't been 24 hours. It's still the same day. It's just much later in the day. I had red set up outside, so I sprayed him down almost entirely. It's not 100%, but I'm gonna try it. So I've got a red suit, I've got a blue suit, so the Velcro is close up on both. Now these two suits are made from the same material. They're not. One's blue, one's red. So they're different, bolts of the material. But they're both made from RipStop nylon. They're both purchased on the same day. They're both purchased from the same store, but there's a huge difference between how well one inflates versus how well the other one inflates. And that is worrisome for me because I'd like things to all kind of be consistent. So orange does okay. Orange inflates, right? It's not a balloon. It's not under pressure. It's not huge, but it works. It inflates, and I was totally happy with it. Red, I have taken outside, and I have sprayed down heavily with Scotch Guard in an attempt to get it to inflate and be a little better. And it's working. It's not. How do I know it's not? Let's compare it to a suit that works. Now, the fans are the same fan. I purchased the same quantity of the same fan at the same time. So I don't think the fan's the difference. It's the fabric. The red fabric isn't windproof enough. The red fabric overall allows too much air to escape. It's too breathable to actually retain enough pressure to inflate. Whereas blue doesn't have much of a problem at all, which is great. I'm very happy with blue. In fact, I'm afraid to change anything on blue because blue works. So if you're making one of these and you're curious as to how you know how well it's working and if it's your fan or not, it's totally the fabric. Scotch Guard still lets the nylon be breathable, which is great. When it comes to Scotch Guard, that's what you want. But when it comes to an inflatable costume that needs to blow up like a balloon, it's not what you want. So there you go, less than a minute. Blue was inflated to the point that he fell off the table. And red can barely inflate the backpack. The results of the red suit's pretty disappointing. I think before I try another material for making it windproof, I'm gonna do some small scale testing first. I still have scraps of all the different fabrics that I'd used for making the suits. So I cut a small piece of each and use hot glue to stick them over short pieces of cardboard poster tube. I make sure I have a seal all the way around the tube. And I also have some black nylon that I bought. There is no black suit, but I wanted to test my black as well. In the previous video, I made, well, 4 suits. You actually saw 2 of them really work. The first suit I made was out of just some purple nylon. This is basically just liner. This is like suit liner materials, nothing terribly special. Then I made a suit out of orange, and that's actually the one that I've been using so far, and I just made some other adjustments to. This one works as far as the amount of air that goes through the fabric. The blue suit was the best suit out of all the ones that I made. It blows up to such a point that it can actually kind of stand up on its own. The orange suit doesn't get enough pressure for the legs to support the body, but the blue suit does. So I've got the blue fabric. The red suit I sewed. Now in the last video, there's a bit of a lie. That's the red suit never inflated. I've got footage of it. Red doesn't work. The blue suit works so well. I never tried red until the camera was actually rolling. I had also bought some black RipStop nylon. Just never got the time to make a full black suit. So I've got the fabric for it. Let's see how well the black fabric works compared to the others. To see how much air goes through the weave of the fabric, I put a little bit of baby powder on top of each one, and then I'll set them over a hairdryer that's blowing cold air. I started with purple, which I knew wouldn't work. Now the orange works on my suit, but how much does it leak? Compare that to the red, which never inflated. Oh, yeah. Now how well does blue really work? Blue works beautifully, and now I can try black before I make a suit from it. Well, I should have made a black one instead of red one. Well, no. If I made the black one instead of the red one, then I wouldn't have known that the quality of the fabrics were different. I would have just assumed I had done something different and wrong, and everyone else would have figured it out, and that would have been bad. I thought maybe I could seal the red with some Mod Podge Ultra. I just paint some on the fabric, making sure it's good and dry, and reload the baby powder and test it. So I've got a completed suit. If I had done the test before I'd sewn it, I could have laid the fabric out on whatever and just painted it down with a little bit of watered down Mod Podge, and looks like it'd be fine. I've got a completed suit, so I get to go hang it up outside and try and paint it while it's hanging up. I might try to spray it with a big spray gun. I might just Tom Sawyer it and slop it with a huge brush. I don't know. I just don't want to end up with a big thing that's just paper mache, but let's give it a shot. I take some Mod Podge and thin it down 50-50 with clean water. I just don't have enough Ultra Mod Podge on hand. I clean up my touch-up air gun. This is kind of like an oversized airbrush, and it can spray thicker mediums. So that test was just water. I'm just spraying water in here. I'm going to take this mixture that I mixed up, because it seems like that's going to be fine, and I'll load that into the spray gun. We'll do all this outside, and I'm going to hose down the red suit. So I'm going to take a watered down solution and spray it onto something that I've Scotch guarded. I hope this will work. I inverted the suit when I sprayed it with Scotch Guard. So I'm hoping that by turning the suit right side out again, that this will spray okay on the outside, and it isn't all going to just beat up and fall off. I set up outside, hanging the suit from the ceiling with a thin fiberglass rod inside of it to stretch the fabric flat. there was a little wind, and I could just barely hold the suit open and the wind would inflate the suit, and so I started to spray it down. And then the wind really picked up to the point that I couldn't let go of the suit. I think the wind waited for me to start before it really got going. I ended up having to wait until after midnight the same night for the wind to stop, and then I could spray it. So I've managed to spray down the entire suit very thoroughly with a watered down Mod Podge solution. I'm very hopeful that this is going to work, because if this doesn't work, I don't know where to go next. Well, red's not going to inflate. I've had no noticeable difference putting Scotchgard on it, putting Mod Podge on it with a spray gun. It's really bothersome that the different color fabrics don't all perform the same, and I have had no idea how to figure that out beforehand. So I think red's a lost cause. Realistically, I know there's other waterproofing things I could do to it. I could spray it down with clear coat Plastidip. I could get whatever waterproofing materials you would use for sailcloth. I could soak it in Mod Podge. There comes a point when it's going to cost so much to find a solution, either a solution to a problem or liquid solution, that'll make this work. It's better just to get a fabric that works to begin with, and that's where I'm at. So, moving on. So one of the things that I wanted to do with the suits the first time around that didn't really come out in the video very well was making places for my hands to be able to come out of the suit. That's really kind of hard to do when it's not on and inflated. Ah, there it is. So all this was, it's the top of a Ziploc bag taped directly to the fabric. I've got packing tape on either side, and the hole sealed up and the suit inflates. That works, but I'm wondering if there isn't something a little more permanent that I can do. But what I'm thinking about doing is sewing in a very short little piece of fabric that's got magnets on it. I cut a strip of fabric 4 inches wide and then cut it in half. I took each 17-inch strip, folding it lengthwise and pinning the edges together, sewing them into a tube with a 1/2-inch seam allowance. Fold again, find the middle and crease it, and then sew 2 short seams in either side of the creased middle. I cut them into 2 sets, 1 for each arm. I cut off about 8 inches of magnetic tape. This will keep the holes closed. I just slip 1 piece into an orange tube, and then using a zipper foot on the machine, I sew a seam on each piece as close to the magnet as I can. The Ziploc bags are gone, but I use a seam ripper to make the armhole a little bigger on each of the front dart seams. I've pinned one of the new pieces to the suit, lining up the seam on the piece with the original front seam of the armhole. I pin the other side in the same way and sew again. I pulled the flaps inside the suit and sew up the rest of the front seam. I make a turn in order to finish off the inner flap and sewing it shut all the way to the back. All magnets have a polarity, so I find the correct orientation of the magnetic tape and then put them inside each of the 2 flaps so that they'll attract to each other. Then sew up the top of the flap like I did on the bottom. The magnets can't get out. And I repeat these same steps for the other arm. I have an inflatable costume. I have magnetic handholds that I can get a fake machete out of. So I'm doing pretty good. What I think I need to do now is improve the visor. What I want to do is take some window film, I actually pick some up, and sew it to a piece of vinyl and see if I can't improve the visor and make it a mirrored visor, more like the game, so you can't see me through it. So it's the last thing I want to do to this orange suit, and then I can go test it out. I traced my visor pattern onto some mirror window film. and cut a piece of vinyl a little bigger than the pattern. I place the vinyl on the table and set the mirror film over it with the best side touching the vinyl. Now I can cut out the pattern lines as I trace them through both materials at the same time. The mirror film has a removable plastic backing, and I'm not going to remove it because I hope it adds some strength to the film. I fold the darts closed, and I have the vinyl on the inside here, and quickly stitch all the darts closed. Now I should have used a longer stitch length, but it still works. And just like the first set of visors, I sew 1/2-inch bias tape around the edges. All right, I got one. It's definitely better. I think that's an improvement. I'll get another one done. I thought about how to attach the new visor and decided it was better to not remove the old one first, but to just top stitch the new visor right over the old one. I did my best to follow the bias tape for the first visor, allowing the top one to be just a little over because it was a little bigger. With the new visor attached, I cut the old one out from the inside. That's all the modifications that I wanted to do to the costume. I think I'm good. Now I'm at a point that I wanted it to be at last time. I've got everything kind of modified to where I want, which is good because tomorrow there's a swap meet and I'm going to be meeting up with a bunch of other Among Us cosplayers. Most of the materials I used for this project I picked up locally. I put a list in the description.
I've had a lot of fun making these videos. I've had a lot of fun being at the con. I've had a lot of fun changing out the visors and making things work. And it's exciting that swap meets are currently happening, so I'm able to meet up with my friends and have some fun. I still am thrilled and happy to have an inflatable suit. I've never made an inflatable cosplay before. I'm glad I got 2 of them that work. But as you can see, there are lots of different ways that you can make an Among Us cosplay. But this is how Odin makes.
Here we go. Okay, so we're gonna have to do it all over again, guys.
The camera didn't record.
Yeah.
Do you want us to do the same costume?
Sure.
More or less, yeah. But I'm just gonna do the same, you know, lots of different ways. The camera didn't record.
Okay.
I want to thank Will Givler, Carl Tennant, and all of my Patreon supporters. My Patreon support is the #1 thing that makes this show possible. If you like the video, don't forget to subscribe. Have an idea for something for me to make? Please leave a comment below. And if you make any of these projects, you can send me a picture.